What if one of the most important decisions of your life was made by somebody else? Not because they forced you, not because they had authority over you, but because you believed them. Think about that for a moment. How many opportunities have disappeared from your life because somebody convinced you they weren't worth pursuing? For many men, the greatest regrets aren't failures, they're abandoned possibilities. And the older you get, the more dangerous this becomes. Because after decades of responsibilities and obligations, you become accustomed to seeking certainty before you act. You want evidence, approval, consensus. But life doesn't work that way, and neither does success. There's a story that illustrates this perfectly. Decades ago, a writer walked into a publisher's office with a new character idea. He was excited about it. The character could climb walls. He had spider-like abilities. And unlike most heroes of the time, he had real-life problems. His publisher thought it was terrible. One of the worst ideas he'd heard. Every criticism he made sounded logical. Every objection sounded totally sensible. Ask yourself this question. If you'd been standing in that office, who would you have believed? The unknown creator or the experienced expert publisher? Most people would have chosen the expert because this publisher wasn't foolish. He wasn't incompetent. He wasn't malicious. He was experienced, respected, successful, and completely wrong. The character was Spider-Man, and here's the lesson. Confidence and correctness are not the same thing. People can have decades of experience and still fail to recognize potential. People can sound certain and still be mistaken. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your entire life confusing authority with truth, because your brain is wired that way. For most of human history, survival depended on belonging to a group. Agreement meant safety. Acceptance meant protection. Rejection carried consequences. Your brain still carries that same programming today. When someone dismisses your idea, questions your ambition, your brain doesn't simply evaluate the information. It experiences a subtle social threat, a warning signal, a pressure to conform, a desire to retreat back to the safety of consensus. That's why criticism feels heavier than encouragement. That's why one negative opinion can outweigh 10 positive ones. And that's why so many capable people quietly abandon goals that mattered to them. Not because the goals were impossible, but because disapproval felt uncomfortable. Here's what's really going on. Most people are not evaluating your idea. They're evaluating it against their own limitations, their own fears, their own assumptions, their own experience of what's possible. Which means if you constantly seek permission from other people, you eventually inherit the boundaries of their imagination. And that's a terrible bargain, especially after 50. Because by now you've accumulated something incredibly valuable. Experience, pattern recognition, judgment, perspective. The irony is that many men trust themselves less at 55 than they did at 25, not because they're less capable, but because they've become addicted to proof and certainty. But certainty rarely comes first. Action comes first. The people who build meaningful things don't wait for universal agreement. Now let's be totally clear about this. This isn't an argument for ignoring advice. It's not an argument for believing every idea you have is brilliant. But there is a big difference between listening to feedback and surrendering your judgment. At some point, you have to stop asking, do they believe in this? And start asking, have I done enough work to believe in it myself? Because nobody is coming to hand you certainty. Nobody is coming to remove all risk. Nobody is coming to guarantee success. The responsibility is yours, but so is the opportunity. So here's the challenge. Take one idea, one ambition, one project you've been delaying, and stop asking for permission. Stop waiting for consensus. Stop expecting certainty. Do the work. Test it. Refine it. Find out what's actually possible. Because the greatest risk facing most men isn't failure. It's reaching the end of the road still wondering what might have been. This is The Primed Edge. Subscribe if staying sharp after 50 means something to you. Take just a few minutes to watch this video next for a free, easy-to-follow mental reset after 50.